Let's get into business with Ross. And there's been a massive merger today in the oil and gas industry. Santos and Oil Search agreeing to a $21 billion deal. Business Editor Ross Greenwood joins us now. And Roscoe, this is reminiscent of BHP and Woodside getting together just recently and when it came to oil and gas, isn't it?
Oh, well, exactly right. So your memory's pretty good here, Chris, and it really is a bit of a trend in many ways. Remember that in the case of BHP and Woodside, a $41 billion merger plan, BHP effectively was trying to strip out its petroleum, oil and gas assets and put them together with Woodside into a separate company. This was one way in which BHP was trying to move the bulk of its business towards different areas, if you like, non-carbon generating businesses, while leaving Woodside to then become a top 10 player in oil and gas in the world. Today's deal being done by Santos and Oil Search is quite similar. They're trying to bulk themselves up. Santos, very big in Australia. Oil Search, also pretty big in Australia, but especially in Papua New Guinea with LNG projects. And that's the reason why you're going to see that there's going to need to be approvals given by PNG authorities as well as Australian authorities for this deal worth $21 billion to go through. But if completed, it will again be a top 20 oil and gas producer in the world, and they also claim will give them better scale to be able to then embark on other areas such as producing green hydrogen or ammonia or whatever it might be into the future that many of these energy companies morph into.
Wow, that's a big uplift for Santos. Now, Gladys Berejiklian talking a lot about opening up New South Wales in the face of the outbreak. One key sector of the economy, the ports, have told you that they're not fully prepared for the reopening.
They have indeed, and it's a former New South Wales Police Minister who's told me that. Mike Gallagher is now the boss of Ports Australia, and what he basically says is that the governments of all sorts have simply not spoken to him and others in the logistics business. This is the people who move stuff in and around Australia. Now, if you go back to the very beginning of the lockdowns and coronavirus, remember the stampedes in our supermarkets as people really scurried and hurried and panicked to buy goods. Well, he's saying he's fearful that if there are outbreaks that occur after the lockdowns are lifted in our supply chains, you could see repeats of those scenes as there are shortages of goods. Let's just pick up a little of Mike Gallagher. We'll play the full interview on Business Weekend this weekend. Here's what he told me today.
If the governments, and I'm talking numerous governments, are talking about they're expecting significant spread of COVID once there is a relaxation, you can only begin to imagine what that panic will be like if the supply chain is broken, because we actually haven't worked with government to do the planning. Or should I say, we're prepared and willing. We need the government and the health officials to come to us and start talking to us what they're expecting the new norm to look like, what are they proposing in terms of restrictions, and then we can do the modelling to work out, okay, if 10%, 15% of our workforce get infected, what does that mean in terms of our overall workforce capability to actually be able to keep the supply chain working?
So, Chris, there's a bit of a wake-up call for governments, not just the Berejiklian government, but for governments all around Australia. If you do want to open up, you'd better go and talk to the people who are going to make certain that the groceries and the food is on people's plates, and also making certain that those warehouses are not going to be affected by outbreaks into the future as well.
Spot on, Ross. We've got a lot to pick our way through over coming months and years, that's for sure. Appreciate it.
No
See you on
problems.
the weekend. Ross Greenwood there. You'll see him back on air at 11 o'clock for Weekend Business here on Sky News.